If you thought 2020 was bad, 2021 just said, hold my beer.
Hey guys, we got new shirts. What do you think? I think it's pretty cool, man, especially for the caring enthusiast out there. All you got to do, hit us up. Our email is right there in the description, or you can just become a patron. A $10 patron or more, we send it to you. What's up, YouTube? Special shout outs today. First one goes to Delana CUTTA for that awesome comment you left about the UPS Karen. You know who you are. Oh, it was awesome. I told you got a shout out coming, and you did. Next, we got a shout out for Ivanish Mahanti. I hope I pronounced your name correctly, and Bridget Clement. Both of you have been on the message boards, on the comments, blowing it up and doing me proud. You get a special shout out from me. Now, last week, I absolutely flamed this lady named Darla Mar for leaving this comment, saying she was a strong Trump supporter who doesn't like terrorists storming the Capitol, but just like she doesn't like BLM burning her cities down. Now, before we get into the false equivalencies there, I understand. Darla had the guts to actually respond again. After a 10-minute, no-holds-barred public flogging of this lady, she smiled, wrote back, foolishness in my opinion, but no cursing, no name-calling, even as I continued to respond to her comments with over-the-top rhetoric and pretty unflattering descriptions, like, for instance, idiot and lost cause. Now, sure, I did it because I wanted to, but more importantly, my goal was to shock her, wake her up, shake her out of her cognitive dissonance-induced coma. And her goal was to defend herself and not look like a crazy, kooky Trump supporter. So she had to be as calm and decent as possible, and she did it. So I respect that. Darla, I respect that. You know, you had the guts to respond, and I will go on the record today in saying Darla Mar does not have the IQ of a snail like most other Trump voters. And I was going to let it go. Then I put this poll up. I gotta give the people what they want. So this time, let me appeal to the more elevated IQs in the room, shall I? Why is Darla, who doesn't appear to be a drooling, uneducated, knuckle-dragging, overt white supremacist who's sexually aroused by violence, especially when it's directed at someone of color, but will settle for owning the libs when violence is on a break? Why is she still a Trump supporter? Well, Darla, the mere fact that you haven't asked a question of yourself yet, why are all racists, xenophobes, violent, uneducated, basically the hicks and the unwashed, thanks Darla Mar Daily, so attracted to this person I support so strongly? Why does 46% of the people in your own party say that what happened last Wednesday was fine? Nothing wrong with it. Give me more of that. You've never asked yourself that, Darla, because of cognitive dissonance. Brought on by sunk cost fallacy and perpetually propped up and held in place by false equivalency training, no doubt provided to you by whatever news media you're obviously watching. So good and decent people of YouTube, let's talk about those three things now with Darla. What is sunk cost fallacy? Well, The sunk cost fallacy is an economic term that describes how so often in life we mistakenly double down on our losses rather than quit while we're ahead. And much of this is due to the emotional investment that accompanies the decision-making process. It's normal. You see, guys, Darla has invested her whole life and self-worth into a party that has used her faith in God and her goodwill to extract as much money and votes from her as they can, while promising her a more Christian nation and a return to family values one great day. Now that is an investment, people. To turn away from an investment like that in 2016 would mean she wasted who knows how many years of her life for nothing. But it's called a fallacy for a reason, Darla. The reality is, every day you sink more and more of your money, emotions, and your self-respect into this dying project, is the more of each of those things you lose. If you were to stop now, stop right now, Darla, you would indeed stop losing. It's not about what was wasted yesterday. It's about stopping the waste now and saving that capital for something that actually works. Having invested so much of your self-respect and supposed ideals into this orange megalomaniac, after supporting the party that wanted to impeach Clinton for having been fellatiated while president, you had to turn around and vote for this guy with 3 wives, children whose names he can't remember, all the while cheating on all of those wives with prostitutes and young girls on his boat that he called private pageants. I mean, for you to admit that this party that you invested so much into actually didn't care about any of the things you thought it did. While they were extracting your money, your dignity, and your unearned loyalty from you, well, that causes cognitive dissonance, Darla. Cognitive dissonance can make people feel uneasy and uncomfortable, particularly when the disparity between their beliefs and their behaviors involves something that is central to their sense of self, and indeed yours. You see, when you held your nose and voted for the monster you knew was a monster, come on, he was rich. So that means he had to have done something right. I mean, we idolize the rich, don't we? Even though that's probably the least Christian-like thing we would do, cognitive dissonance. I mean, at least he hates the same people I do. Wait a minute. I don't hate anybody. I just think gays shouldn't get married and those illegals should be dealt with, you know. Make America great again. That's a better way to say it, right? Cognitive dissonance. It's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable. Then, when the illegals are put into cages with no bathwater or toothpaste for the children, then the children are ripped away from their parents, and the parents sent home without their children, and the children look up in vain to search for the comfort of their father or their mother, never to actually see it or have that again. Just one more time. Cognitive dissonance leads way to false equivalencies at that point. Like, well, this program started under Obama. And even when it started under Obama, this law somehow, he never got kids in jail, never got kids in cages, and never separated them from their parents. It's still Obama's fault. Because if it was Trump's fault, Darla, then it's your fault. for voting for him when everyone else told you this is exactly the kind of thing he was going to do? It's false equivalency holding up your cognitive dissonance. It's uncomfortable. I mean, we don't have to even go into the false equivalency of terrorists trying to take over the country and someone telling left-wing people to get into the faces of senators during lunch at a restaurant like you tried to. That's not the same thing. The truth is, Darla, we don't need to go into any of that because it's so outrageously false on its face. It's so obviously a cognitive dissonance held up by false equivalency. I think it's more important to talk about the fact that there are 1,000 false equivalencies you either make up or latch onto when you hear them in the news you watch, which is why you watch the news you watch. It's comforting, Darla. It reassures you that all that investment you made is going to come back to you, and there is absolutely no reason for you to ask the hard question I posed at the top of all of this. Why are all racists, xenophobes, violent, uneducated, the hicks and the unwashed so attracted to this person I support so strongly? Why does 46% of my party say that what happened Wednesday was fine? Nothing was wrong with it, even when I don't? These are the questions. And the most important one, Darla, what does that say about you and where you're putting your investments? And one last thing, just to drive the point home, Darla, the protests that you talk about and the riots afterwards where they broke windows and burned unmanned buildings, the only times that people actually died were when the right-wing protesters showed up, both at the Capitol and in the streets. You equate property damage to loss of life and still don't understand the definition of false equivalency.